Good evening. What a ride on Wall Street today. Everyone using words like roller coaster, madness, just plain crazy.
By a trader with what's described as fat fingers.
Market thrown by a mistake, someone hitting the wrong button. It's being dubbed the fat finger trade, and David Muir tells us about it. David.
Nauseating for so many trade law, and we heard it could be human error, someone in front of their computer simply punching the wrong key. But then why the sudden plunge? Late today, we learned of something else at play, likely human error. Speculation that a trader looking to sell $16 million in shares accidentally punched in $16 billion.
It was horrific timing to have it both happen at the same time.
One exasperated trader leaving the stock exchange told us this.
It's like Terminator. Machines taking over.
Late today, with fingers pointed at a trader at Citigroup, Citi responded. At this point, we have no evidence that Citi was involved in any erroneous transactions. The Citigroup tonight telling us it's investigating that human error. And at this point, we have no evidence that Citi was involved in any erroneous transactions.
Tonight, free fall. The stock market goes straight down 1,000 points in about 15 minutes tonight. What has happened here? Watch it. The stock market fell off a cliff, went straight down. A free fall of 1,000 points in just a few minutes. Maria, what happened there today?
Well, Brian, fear and panic definitely returned to Wall Street today. It all started in Europe, where people were worried about the debt crisis in Greece spreading throughout Europe and to the United States. That's really what started the selling, but things accelerated in the middle of the day. You mentioned Procter & Gamble, a very important company and a part of the Dow 30 stocks for Procter & Gamble. It sounds technical, it really isn't. The bottom line is, because that trade went through at such a low price, it took the entire market down with it. That's when we saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average drop more than 900 points, almost 1,000 points. Until that 90-second period was over, volume opened up in Procter & Gamble, and the stock settled at.
But we begin with a breathtaking day for investors, caused partially by a trader with what's described as fat fingers. That trader is said to have accidentally hit the wrong computer key, and in just seconds, stocks took a terrifying dive. The major indices lost up to 9%. A trading error was responsible for that huge drop. A mistake that apparently sent shares of the Dow component Procter & Gamble tumbling, dragging down the rest of the index and setting off a chain reaction of electronic sales. But
yeah, and what we're learning from our colleagues at CNBC is somewhat of an unbelievable story about how this whole thing went down. Sources tell CNBC a trader entered B instead of an M during a trade. So instead of writing millions, he or she wrote billions in a trade, possibly involving Procter & Gamble, which is part of the Dow. The trade may have been made at Citigroup, which at this point is denying any involvement. So right now we're talking about a clerical error that led to the biggest same-day point drop ever.
A clerical error like this is like lighting fireworks at a gunfight between the tension with the Greek debt and the tension of the other things that are real. When you have a huge misprint like that, it sends everybody for the exits, and that's what happened.
We don't yet know all the facts, but we are hearing more about this potential erroneous trade. This is what goes on down here. When traders are executing their trades here, they trade by the millisecond. We're hearing that one trader could potentially had a fat finger, pressed a B instead of an M. That we don't know. What we do know is that traders down here rely more and more on electronic trades, and while that's more proficient most of the time, having people down here to man the operation may have been able to prevent this from happening.
this now. We're going to turn to Bob Grayfeld. He's the CEO of NASDAQ. Was it as simple as someone simply hitting the wrong button on a trade?
No. In our market, we saw that the systems one worked fine, and we didn't have any unusual activity from any of our customers per se. I think it was.
Final question. You hear the traders describing the action yesterday. They're using words like Matrix, the Terminator, the Twilight Zone, and this is a situation they say where the machines have taken over. Do new protections have to be put in place to slow this system down?
Well, one, I would say, is we do have to step back and look at the circuit breakers we have in the marketplace today and see if they can be improved. This was a different type of situation than I think the circuit breakers are meant to address. But with respect to your first comment, it was not really a terminative situation. When you look at it, the people who are assigned the responsibility of providing liquidity into the market, especially in times of stress, did not do that. It's as if you walked up to the teller and the teller shut the booth. That certainly spooked the market, and that contributed to the downfall. Certainly what you covered in your segment is you had the backdrop of the unrest in Europe, the fear in the market. Then we saw some heightened activity in the futures market that spilled over into the equity market. And what happened with Procter & Gamble and stocks such as that and Accenture is we saw the main listed market basically step away, not answer the electronic phone calls. That also spooked the market. And that was the additional fact that helped drive us into that abyss for the
Some breaking news from our Washington bureau. Rich Edson has some news on what may have truly happened yesterday.
It appears, again, this comes from Major Garrett through Rich Edson, Major Garrett working for Fox News Channel. According to administration officials, fat fingers are not to blame for what we saw yesterday during this very hour. Senior administration official briefed early Friday by regulators said the preliminary conclusion is that fat finger phenomena didn't trigger the sell-off. The official, who spoke on anonymity, by the way, said regulators reported the more likely cause of the gyrations was programmed sales. We talked about that. Was apparently it wasn't just one errant trader going like this.
Exactly.
Bob O'Brien and our professor earlier on in this hour. So these program sales of stock across exchanges apparently is to blame for what you are seeing now.
But what you are seeing, keep it up, please. What you are seeing now may have very well started in Chicago. The belief is that it started perhaps at one of the Chicago exchanges, and then it began to trigger the volume back on the Dow in New York. And
President Obama has launched an investigation.
The regulatory authorities are evaluating this closely with a concern for protecting investors and preventing this from happening again.
1,000 points. Jason, now that we've just heard the breaking news about the administration saying it was not a fat finger, you say now we really have a bigger problem.
Yeah, now we know it was actually done by design, and it wasn't a mistake, which makes matters worse, not better. The fact that one program can create such chaos means the problem's a lot bigger than we actually thought it was.
Selling on top of selling on top of selling, and this is where you make the case for putting that short tick rule.
Well, in worst case scenario, that's the one thing they need to put back in place.
Right.
But, you know, as long as there's finger pointing going on and not a real investigation as to how to control the markets and the tailspin that we saw yesterday, then we're still going to be facing the same dilemma.
I don't think we're looking for some bank who mistakenly, sold $2 billion when they meant to sell $2 million. I actually don't think that had anything to do.
What have we learned about the chaos yesterday?
One possible cause, a so-called fat finger trade, where someone simply entered too many zeros.
We make fat finger mistakes all the time, but they don't move the market down 1,000 points.
Whether it was human or computer error, it happened.